Hi there, and welcome to For Dragonflies and Me. This is Jean Roman, and I am so happy to be here again, sharing some tips and tricks for the home and garden. Today is our Gardening 101 Day 12 series, and I'm going to be talking about my top 10 favorite herbs and, of course, how to care for them. And so, again, I've created a really beautiful PowerPoint for you with lots of pretty pictures and descriptions of each of the herbs. I will also have those descriptions at my blog, so you don't have to worry about taking notes or keeping this, but I would love for you to smash that subscribe button and like button here at YouTube. And again, leave me a comment. Tell me what your favorite herb is. I love your feedback, as always. And if you think I missed something or you have some tips that I didn't share, I would love to hear it, because that's what we do, right? We help each other, we garden, and because gardeners are just one big happy family. So we're going to jump right into the PowerPoint. But first, I have a lot of things in front of me. Some eggshells that I had showed you guys previously in a blog post that I've been sharing to plant my tomato seeds in. And I know today we're talking about herbs, but I am going to kind of touch base on a couple things that I'm going to be discussing in upcoming YouTube videos and blogs. But today I have some of my favorite herbs, definitely cilantro, basil, and parsley. Those are probably, as well as thyme and oregano. I know it's so hard to choose which ones, right? But we're going to go into some of this detail too, and I'm going to show you some tips on how to plant things. And so let's get into the PowerPoint. So I'm going to hit my share screen, and there we go. Welcome to For Dragonflies and Me, tips and tricks for the home and garden. So today is day 12, my top 10 herbs for the home and garden and how to care for them. If you missed days 1 through 10 and 11, you can visit me at my blog to see all of those, as well as click the links in the bottom, the description in this YouTube video. So again, welcome. So as always, I love to start my blogs, my podcasts, and my YouTube videos with a fitting quote, whether it's cooking or gardening, and today's no different. So, from Gertrude Jekyll, a garden is a grand teacher. It teaches patience and careful watchfulness. It teaches industry and thrift. Above all, it teaches entire trust. And if you're a gardener, I think you know exactly what I'm talking about with this quote, which is why I chose it. Gardeners are very patient, and by nature, I am not. So gardening has definitely taught me to be more patient, at least in the garden, sometimes not otherwise, but I am really happy to be sharing this content with you today. And again, if you like the content, be sure to subscribe and like. So, teach me how to grow herbs. Herbs are by far one of my favorite things to grow. So many of my favorites are perennials and so easy to care for. Herbs are super easy to grow, but do require some care when harvesting, pruning, and thinning. We're going to get into that during this episode. Other considerations when planting herbs include location. This is a key element to the success of their growth. Herbs generally prefer a sunny location, but can tolerate a bit of partial shade. Raised beds are ideal locations for herbs to thrive, as they prefer a well-drained soil. And I did just do a 2-part series on raised bed gardenings, how to build one, and the benefits of it. So you can also see that in the description below for the direct links, or visit me at my blog for dragonfliesandme.com. Subscribe there too so you don't miss a beat. Also, another really important factor with herbs is watering. Should be done regularly. With the exception of rosemary and lavender, you can actually really do some damage with overwatering them and drown them technically. So be sure to always read those seed package descriptions on, or the plant tag if you are purchasing seedlings. So let's look at my favorite top 10 herbs for the home gardener and how to care for them. And this here at the top left is purple basil, believe it's Reuben. And it is lovely in a salad. It is lovely to incorporate in a basil, in a pesto. A lot of people just look at basil as being green, and there is so much more with basil. And there are so many varieties, dozens really. And obviously, I'm not going to get directly into that today, but I would like to eventually talk about the different varieties of basil. If you are in or around the Dearborn area on March 12th, you can actually visit me at a home and garden expo hosted by the Dearborn Board of Realtors at the Park Place Catering. And that will also be in the description. It is a free admission. I will be there teaching a class. I believe from noon to 1 or 11:30 to 12:30. I do have those details on my blog at fordragonfliesandme.com, and also with the class description. I'm going to be teaching how to plant herbs that day, and we would love for you to be there. Absolutely free for you to be there. And if you want more information, please reach out to me at my email, fordragonfliesandme@gmail.com. Basil, of course, it's number one here. I love basil. I will make pesto all summer long. It is one of our favorite dishes. And here is a linguine. I love to make a linguine with pesto sauce. And obviously it goes in my spaghetti sauce, my marinara sauce, and so many other things. But this annual herb is a staple in many kitchens and is so easy to grow in a sunny spot in the garden or in raised beds or in containers. It prefers a well-drained soil and should be watered regularly. Definitely checking the soil, not to overwater because you will cause the stem to rot and your plant will die. You'll know if it's starting to turn too yellow. But harvesting basil is kind of the most important thing to think about. When you're harvesting basil, you want to pinch back the little branches. And in the picture is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. So you don't want to cut back the entire branch on a basil plant. I was really hoping to have some live plants for today, and I tried to purchase some even from a greenhouse supplier, but unfortunately, herbs are not available yet. And I did not think to start any. So I will obviously show you that in the future, and direct harvesting and pinching back. But when you are harvesting your basil leaves, you definitely want to pinch back at like a branch. So if you think about a stem and it has two branches, you want to pluck the center out and then the tips of them. And that is going to encourage bushy growth, and you'll have a beautiful basil plant. Basil is an annual, as mentioned here. It doesn't do real well coming in for winter like some herbs do. You can maybe get a little bit of time out of it, but like I said, it's an annual, so it has its lifespan. Its DNA knows it is an annual. It knows it's supposed to produce seed so that it can just simply die. You can get a little bit of time, like by bringing it in, like I mentioned, though. So moving on. Chives, a perennial herb. Chives are hardy and so easy to grow and will reseed like crazy. They do prefer, again, a sunny spot and a well-drained soil. You can grow them in pots. You can grow them in a standard garden or obviously in raised beds. They can be cut back in the fall to promote new growth in the spring. So when you have chives, again, they're a perennial. So that means they're going to come back year after year after year. And in this photograph, you can see the flower of a chive, which is edible. So when the chive sets its blossom, that is telling the plant to produce seed, to reproduce. That's the way it is with all vegetables. That is the way it is with all herbs and flowers and trees. So by cutting the herb back regularly throughout the season, you are hindering the production of that blossom head, in essence, creating seed to reproduce. I definitely suggest you keep it cut back, because if you allow it to go to seed and spread its seed across the garden, you will have a plethora of chive plants. So take that into consideration. It is not going to die if you don't let it produce a blossom, because again, it is a perennial. It's coming back every year, bigger and more beautiful. If you do want to allow it to go to seed a little bit, what I would recommend is only allowing like maybe 4 or 5 of the stalks, really 2 or 3 of the stalks, the little stems, the chives, to reproduce and let it go to seed. And then if you want to, transplant and have more chives the next year, if you're going to do a spring perennial exchange, which I will be blogging about in March, and teaching you how to host a perennial exchange, which is so fun. Chives are a great plant to reproduce in that fashion by letting it go to seed and then digging up, replanting, and believe me, you'll have chives forever. Another one is garlic chives. I did not include that this time, but the difference between a garlic chive and onion chive is the onion chives have the round, hollow stem, and where a garlic chive is actually flat. And so when you think about actually the way onions and garlic grows, onions always have, let me show you. Onions always have this round, hollow, green stem. And this is going to be another blog I'm coming up. This is a bunch of green onions that I purchased at the grocery store, cut all the way back, and have been putting in water and letting them grow. So that's an upcoming blog. But if you think about if you've ever grown garlic, garlic leaves, stems are green flat. So the chives, both onion and garlic, grow in that same fashion. And that's how you can kind of differentiate the two. But they are both prolific breeders. Cilantro. Oh my. Well, as many of you know, Dave, the boys, and I make a lot of Mexican dishes, and I am forever using cilantro. Cilantro, again, is an annual. So it's hard to bring it in, but you can try. You may get a couple months out of it. But cilantro is used a lot in Mexican and Asian culinary cuisine. So it prefers a sunny spot again, but also can tolerate partial shade. It should be planted in a well-drained soil again and watered regularly. So again, raised beds, a regular garden plot, and containers. So if you, for instance, are in an apartment or a condo that you can't have a regular plot garden or raised bed gardens, herbs are so easy to grow in containers. And again, that class that I'm going to be teaching for the Dearborn Board of Realtors in March at Park Place. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit there. I'm trying to make sure I say the right place because I'm having so many upcoming classes. I will also be teaching some herb classes at Goldner Walsh Garden and Home in Pontiac, Michigan. It is a beautiful location. And I also will be at the Farmington Farmers and Artisans Market teaching classes once a month. So that is all at my blog For Dragonflies and Me. Check out the page, Where's Jean, to see where I'm going to be all year long. Super excited, friends. But cilantro, again, is super easy to grow. A lot of people, may look at it and think, oh, well, that's parsley. It is not. You can definitely differentiate the two by their smell. But cilantro is a great herb. I love to snip it up and use it on fresh street tacos and any really topping, fajitas, whatnot. So cilantro, definitely a must grow herb. Dill. Are you planning on canning pickles this year? Well, dill is an annual herb and is often used in pickling and can also be used fresh in salads and sauces. It is super yum. It can also be used in creating your oils, your herb infused oils. And there is a blog that I have written that I will put in the links below in the description, so you can click on that. And dill is really good, and it really does add a nice extra flavor to any salads, but it does prefer a sunny location. It also will tolerate some partial shade, but it should be planted in a well-drained soil and watered regularly. Dill can be planted in raised bed gardens and obviously a large plot garden. It's kind of hard to grow in a container unless you have a large container, because dill will get almost as tall as I am, and I'm about 5'5", 5'5.5". So anywhere between 4 and 5 feet, dill is going to grow to, and it's a pretty big bush. It looks like a bush, so it is in diameter probably can get 2 feet in diameter. So you really want to think about that spacing, read the directions, read the descriptions on the packages or the tags with your seedlings if you buy them. Dill doesn't transplant real well. I know that you can purchase them at greenhouses. I personally like to start them from seed right directly into the ground. So again, consider your spacing, and I am going to be talking about garden planting. There's going to be a 2-part series starting next week at my blog, so be sure to watch that at fordragonfliesandme.com, because I am going to go over how to create your plot, your garden plot, your raised beds, and how to measure out the space by definitely following the descriptions on the back of your seed packages if you start from seed, or the tags on your plants. So dill, again, is primarily used for canning pickles. You can definitely purchase it if you don't want to take up that much space. You can purchase it at farmers markets, and I believe probably grocery stores too. I've never purchased it there. I've either grown it or got it at a farmer's market. But it is a space sucker. So if you really don't plan on pickling or using it in a salad, it's definitely for somebody who is going to can and for their pickles or pickling anything. Otherwise, I don't really think it's essential in the garden, but I definitely want to include it in my top 10 because a lot of you can. I can. I'm going to be doing pickles this year, so it's definitely going to be in my garden. If not, I will again purchase it from the farmer's market. Lavender. Have you thought about lavender in your garden? Well, lavender is a perennial. It's often used in fragrant flowers and oils, essential oils. It prefers a sunny spot, well drained, don't overwater. And pruning it each year is essential. So what can you do with lavender when you're thinking about cooking, right? Well, lavender flowers can be used in cookies. Again, I do have my herb blog that I will put the link into the description below that you can use lavender in a lot of things. It is also just a beautiful cut flower, and it dries really, really well. Obviously, it is a pollinator. You can see the happy little bumblebee there. If you're trying to create a pollinator garden, which is going to be my April podcast, again, with Mr. Tim Travis from Goldner Walsh Garden and Home, we're going to be talking about how to create natural habitats and pollinator gardens. So definitely want to keep posting that. Be sure to follow me at my blog as well as my Facebook events. Register so you don't miss a beat. But lavender can be used in so many things, essential oils if you're into that. Also just the scent, it's beautiful. I always have lavender and roses growing side by side. Alrighty, so oregano. Oregano is another perennial herb and will proliferate incredibly if you let it go to seed. Oregano is often used in Mediterranean cuisine. It does prefer a sunny spot and well-drained soil. So again, you definitely can do this in a regular plotted garden and raised beds. It does need to be regularly pruned back as well. So again, like basil, if you allow oregano to go to flower, which means going to seed, it is going to spread massively. One thing that I have done in the past to kind of contain oregano is grow it in a pot, but I plant the pot in one of my raised beds. The most important part is to not let it go to seed. You need to cut it back, but you don't want to cut it back so far back that it won't come back, where you cut it back so hard, I guess is the best way to describe it, that it doesn't reproduce its blossoms. So generally just pruning it back through the season, you will see it starting to go to flower, and that's when you want to start cutting it back. Again, oregano is a wonderful herb to have in your garden, your kitchen garden, your potager, and I definitely recommend, especially if you make your own marinara and spaghetti sauces, pizza sauces. Again, canning, I'm going to be going into that a lot this summer and fall, but I definitely recommend having oregano in your garden. Oregano, again, is a perennial. It doesn't, you can bring it in the winter if you decide to do it in a container and use it all winter long, but just remember to keep snipping it back. Parsley. I love parsley, and it is definitely one herb that I use on a regular basis in many of my dishes, both dried and fresh. Parsley is a biannual. And so what that means is if you plant it by a seed or by a seedling and plant that, it is going to grow beautifully that year. The next year it will come back. That is when you should let it go to seed so that it reproduces, because a biennial means it's going to live for 2 years, and the third year it won't come back. So parsley can be, again, potted in a pot and brought in over winter, but don't count on it for that third year if you do that. If you're planting it in your raised beds or in a regular plotted garden, definitely cut it back hard, leaving about 6 inches from the ground, from the soil, when you're pruning it back. The other thing to think about when you are growing parsley and harvesting through the year is you never want to just cut the whole thing back until the fall. During the year when you're harvesting it for use, you want to cut the outer leaves, the nice big full outer leaves. It is always growing new little baby shoots up the center. And so with that, you don't want to cut those out. You want to let those keep growing. So I always recommend, if you use parsley a lot, like I do, having 2 to 3 plants. And so you're going to cut those out, cut away the outer leaves using that. And you can also cut it back, store it in the fridge in a Ziploc bag. It really does last long in the fridge, and it is so easy to dry. I cannot wait to show you guys how to dry herbs this fall. I'm going to be teaching that class at Goldner Walsh Garden Home this fall, as well as doing a blog and a YouTube video on that. So super excited for that. Rosemary. Well, quite frankly, I never use rosemary. I do not like the smell of pine. It literally makes me gag. But a lot of people love it, and especially if you cook a lot of fish, a lot of people use rosemary with fish. Rosemary is a perennial and can easily be brought in throughout the winter. I have a few friends that have rosemary bushes that are quite substantial, like, you know, this tall, this big, in their home, and they keep it in a pot. They upsize it every year and give it new soil. And rosemary will grow forever. It'll outlive you as long as you take care of it. Again, this is one that doesn't like to be overwatered and really does like a nice sunny spot. It is used a lot in Mediterranean cuisine, and it is a tropical herb, I guess. It grows in the Mediterranean areas and loves the heat, loves the sun, and it can grow into a small tree if you live in a southern state, I'm sure. So again, pruning back. Rosemary, again, it will flower. All flowers, all herbs, all vegetables, they produce a blossom to create a fruit, or a flower to produce seed to reproduce. That is in its genetics, it's in its DNA. So regularly pruning back your rosemary into, like, probably, you know, each little branch is its own. If you missed on how to harvest thyme, that is a YouTube video. I'll put the link in the description below. But rosemary is very similar if you want to harvest it that way. And by simply taking a stem, holding the tip firmly and pushing the leaves backwards, it will be super easy to harvest your rosemary leaves. But definitely not overwatering, and pruning and back regularly is a key for rosemary. Sage, again, this is a perennial herb. It's used a lot in stuffings and sausages. So if you really like to create your own sausages using bulk sausage and different flavors, sage is definitely something you want to have in your garden. Again, it's a perennial. Again, it will reproduce prolifically if you allow it to go to seed. You do want to prune this hard in the fall, leaving only about 6 to 8 inches of the plant, and it will come back every year bigger and beautiful. Again, if you allow it to go to seed, it is going to reseed itself all around, and you're going to have a bunch of sage babies. So if you want that, great. If you are interested in sharing those at a perennial exchange again, or with neighbors and friends, then go for it. But you do want it to be in a sunny spot. It does, again, like well-drained soil. I really, you can, again, grow this in a pot and bring it in, but I don't know that sage is such an herb that is used so regularly by a lot of people. It is again used in stuffings and sausages. And so I always think about sage, around the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas when I'm making a turkey. Otherwise, sage really isn't on my radar, but it might be something that you really enjoy growing. So again, think about your garden space. Think about how much area you have to offer different plants. How many annuals are you going to grow? How many perennials do you want to grow? Are you going to grow, a lot of vegetables? Do you want to just have herbs? Think about your space and determine if you really have room for any of these herbs and vegetables that we'll talk about eventually in upcoming blogs and videos. Time. Okay, time is in my top three. Herbs, 100%. It is a perennial, which makes me so happy. And it is often used in Mediterranean cuisine. It does prefer a sunny, well-drained soil as well, sunny spot in a well-drained soil. And it should be watered regularly and also pruned back. If you don't, it, like oregano, will flower. It gets tons, hundreds and hundreds of little flowers that reseed, and you will have gobs and gobs of thyme. I use thyme in so much. I use it when I make my garlic thyme infused oils that I brush on chicken, and when I grill zucchini and yellow squash. It's just delicious. And I usually have my own jar. I dry it out. Again, I showed a video on how to prune back the little leaves, because again, they're little teeny tiny leaves, and it's very time it takes a lot of time to pluck one leaf at a time. So definitely watch that video if you are intending on growing thyme. Thyme is used in so many dishes. You can use it with any chicken dish. You can use it with fish. You can use it with beef. It is just such a versatile herb, and I just love the way it smells and tastes. So definitely recommend growing thyme as one of your herbs. Again, think about your space, think about how much you want to offer to each herb and whatever it is you're growing. So pruning, again, is a key element to continued growth and bushing of your herb plants. For example, pinching back, as I mentioned earlier, the tips of basil will encourage that nice bushy plant that you always see. But while pruning back herbs such as rosemary and lavender after they have flowered will promote new growth. Parsley and cilantro should have the outer leaves cut back, like I mentioned earlier, leaving that center growth. And here we have. And harvesting your herbs should be done early in the morning. You may not think about that, but really harvesting it at a certain time really does matter, because and definitely wait till after the dew is dried up. If you try to harvest fruits, vegetables, herbs, whatever it is, when that morning dew is still on it, you can actually really cause like fungus to begin by touching it. So you definitely want to wait for that. But harvesting the leaves, stems, and even the flowers, depending on the herb, if they're edible, like chive flowers, like I had mentioned earlier, you can do that. But the reason is the oils of the plant are much more potent at this time of day, early in the morning. So you're going to get the most bang for your buck, the most taste during that time. So in conclusion, by growing your own herbs, you are going to be able to enjoy so many of them for years to come as the perennials are growing for you. Some can even be brought in over the winter, as I mentioned, if you like I said, grow them in pots. Unfortunately, like I also mentioned, annual herbs don't do very well when brought in, as they have lived their life cycle. They know through their genetics. Herbs can add so much to your cooking, especially when used fresh, but it doesn't have to stop there. You can dry them, as I mentioned earlier, and use them all winter long. Talk about money savings. Herbs can get super expensive. If you use them a lot, you understand. But keep posted from my upcoming blog on how to dry your herbs. And again, I'm going to be teaching that class a couple times this year, and I will be doing that blog. So both in the spring and the fall, because certain things, we get a lot of the early herbs with the perennials. So I like to do it at both times of the year. So if you missed episodes 1 through 10 of my Gardening 101 series, the links are in the description below. Don't despair, you won't have to miss a thing. And I would love for you to visit me at my blog for dragonfliesandme.com and subscribe so you don't miss a beat. If you found value in this video, I would love for you to smash that subscribe button and smash that like button so that YouTube algorithms will share this video with many other people, and even better, share it out with your friends and family that you know might enjoy this video, which I super appreciate. Well, Dragonfly friends, thanks again for stopping by. If you enjoyed this episode, again, smash the subscribe and like buttons and be sure you subscribe so you don't miss a beat. If you haven't visited me at my podcast, in my blog, of course, my social media platforms, for additional daily inspiration for the home and garden, be sure to visit me there and like and follow me. I have different content on all of my platforms. On my podcast, for instance, I am generally interviewing different entrepreneurs. So if you're out there, if you're a gardener that's thinking about maybe becoming a market gardener, my podcast is going to inspire you. In May, I'm going to be really focusing on local food, farmers markets, and healthy lifestyles. So I would love to see you there. And as always, definitely leave me comments. I love hearing your feedback. But until next time, friends, eat fresh, shop local, and have a happy day.